There, Sarah Johnston here. Today, we're going to do a couple stitches on my doodle cloth. That's what this is. Just has a bunch of random stitches when I get new thread or want to try a stitch or something. I use this. So someone asked me if I would show the oyster stitch. So that's what we're going to do today. First, we're going to do a twisted chain stitch. So I have here 6 strands of DMC floss and a chenille needle, just because that's the easier one for me to thread with this much, with all 6 strands. I wouldn't normally use all 6 strands, but for demonstration purposes. So on a twisted chain stitch, you're going to come up at the side of that dot, and then you're going to go in the dot and come back up the other dot, and then wrap so that you have like an X or a little fish. A lot of times people do this stitch the other way around. In other words, they show it going down, and I have a hard time with that. So I had a hard time learning this stitch. And just so you know, I don't necessarily like it very much, this stitch, but it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to go back through this leg of the twisted chain stitch. And now, because that's not anchored down, you have to kind of hold it in place. Then we're going to go inside here and come back up at the outside, at the top or the bottom, whatever. And I'm going to do a chain stitch around that whole stitch. Then pull through. And you can't pull too tight. If you pull too tight, it just makes a mess, because the first chain stitch is not anchored. You know what I mean? The twisted chain is not really anchored. I don't use this stitch a lot. I don't like it, and I think that's why, because it's confusing. It's not easy to learn. So I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to come up at the side of my dot. I'm going to go in the dot and back up at the top dot, and then twist, make an X or a little fish. There's your twisted chain stitch. And now I'm not going to anchor it down. I'm just going to pull tight that way. And I think this is what I don't like about this stitch. You don't anchor it down. Now I'm going to go through, my thread is looping around this way, and I'm going to go in here under that leg of the fish, and then I'm going to pull, not too tight, because I want to get in here, and I'm going to go in here and up at the bottom or at the top. Then I can pull that a little bit tight. I'm going to wrap, and now you want to make sure it's kind of pulled a little tight, just where you want it, because you don't want to pull it too tight after you're done, because it could mess it all up. So there is, and I'm going to anchor that chain stitch. So there is the oyster stitch. Okay, well, I just did all this and I was off camera. So I'm going to show you a Palestrina stitch or Palestrina knot. Now, a lot of times people do this top to bottom. I don't like to sew that way. I like to do bottom to top. And I've also seen it done where they take this stitch really, you're going to go in at the bottom of the stitch of the line and come up at the top. And if you take a big stitch, I think it just looks weird. I'm sorry, but I'm going to take just a little bite out of the fabric like that and then pull through. Now, because I'm going up and not down, I'm going to go up through there, and then it makes this sort of a Y. I'm going to pull that a little bit tighter. And then, again, because I'm going up and not down, I'm going to go up through the bottom little rung there, and I want to make a knot. I'm putting my thread around the back, and I'm pulling through. Now, I didn't like this stitch a lot until I found it in a book about the sea, and she used it for rope. And actually it was, let me just show you, kind of close together, and it looked very much like rope. And she also went down. I just had to figure out for myself how to go up. Go up from the bottom, and you get this little Y, and you go underneath the bottom of the Y and wrap the thread to make a knot, and then pull through. There's your little knot. Let's do one more. Take a little bite out of the fabric there. Ah, there we go. And then up there, got a little Y, and I go through, and then I want to wrap my thread around the end because I want a knot. There we go. And then to end off, you're just going to go down along the line. Had a line there. And that is the Palestrina stitch, or the Palestrina knot. And I'm going to do a separate video today. I'm going to do some little flowers with this little oyster stitch. It's also called a rosette. So I'll post another video later today with that in a little twinchy. Bye for now.